The following is a presentation of the Championship Racing Network.
Crossed Flags, a racing podcast. It's your midweek fix for racing news and information. Brought to you by the Championship Racing Network. Now let's head trackside to join your hosts, Steve West and Matt Nicholson.
Welcome into the post-Thanksgiving edition of the Crossed Flags podcast. Appreciate you joining us. Thank you for sticking with us through the holiday week where everything just kind of got, thrown up in the air.
Yeah.
People going on vacation and everything had to be done before Thursday. It was a difficult time, but, hey, we got through it, and we appreciate you joining us again here. And we got plenty to talk about here. We've got a little NASCAR news, some NHRA news coming up a little later, but we're going to kick off with Formula One because F1 is in their final weekend of the 2024 season, and it's been quite the season news-wise. It was strange because 2023, we didn't see any movement. All the drivers that were in those seats from 2022 stayed in those same seats 2023. 2024, movement all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
Silly season began way back even before the 2024 season began when Lewis Hamilton decided he was going to switch from his longtime team, Mercedes, and go to Ferrari. Now all of a sudden everybody's moving everywhere. One of the moves was Haas F1 making a move to go grab the Alpine driver, Esteban Ocon. Esteban Ocon is going to join with Haas F1 in an all-new lineup next year. And that lineup will include Ferrari development driver Ollie Behrman. It's going to be a couple of good guys. Coming up this weekend, season finale, Abu Dhabi. And then I want to say it might actually begin on Monday, but I'm sure it begins on Tuesday. They get into postseason testing, which one of your drivers is a veteran. The other driver has to be somebody who has very little to no experience in Formula One. We're going to get back to that.
A green rookie.
Basically, yes. We'll get back to that part of the story in a moment. First things first. Carlos Sainz is leaving Ferrari. He's going to Williams. The Ferrari contract, or actually all F1 contracts with the drivers, they don't go by the season. They go by the year. So in other words, Matt's got a contract with Ferrari. That contract with Ferrari goes through December 31st.
That'd be great.
At midnight at the time of where they are in home, whenever midnight hits in Italy, okay?
Mm-hmm.
At that point in time, at 12 o'clock and 1 second on January 1st of 2025, Matt, putting him in the place of Carlos Sainz, would then be able to and be free, and his contract with Williams picks up. Follow where I'm going with that. Well, Ferrari said, I'll tell you what, we'll let Carlos go ahead and do postseason testing. Even though he's contracted to us, we'll let him do postseason testing with Williams. Mercedes, on the other hand, said, yeah, I know that he's supposed to go to you guys for next year, but we're going to hold Lewis Hamilton until the very last second. So he's not going to be testing for you when we get done with the regular season 2024. All right, that's two different ways of looking at it. Where does Alpine come in on this? Well, as we noted, Esteban Ocon's going to Haas F1. Not only is he going to get the chance to go ahead and drive for Haas F1 in this postseason test, he's actually not racing in the season finale. They said, you know what? Why don't you just go ahead and take on off, and we'll take Jack Doohan, who's going to take your seat next year, and we'll go ahead and put him in for the final race of the year. Wow. Were things that bad between Alpine and Esteban Ocon?
Sounds like it.
It does.
Very,
what
very
the
much sounds
heck
like it.
has been going on in the hallways of Alpine?
Yeah. Sounds like it has, but, to each his own.
We heard rumors that maybe Esteban Ocon and his teammate Pierre Gasly were not quite getting along all that well, but I don't know whether that's deserved.
Let him run the last race, be done with it.
Yeah, exactly.
Why snatch him out one race too quick? I could get the jump start side of it and go ahead and get that mesh together, but let him just run it and be done with it.
Let him fill it out. Put Jack Doohan in the car. Let him do the test. You'd be fine there. What's Jack going to learn from the 2024 car that he'll be able to apply to 2025? I'm not thinking a whole lot. cars tend to change a pretty good bit over the course of this off season before they get ready to go racing in Australia to kick off the 2025 season. So as noted, Ocon's going to get to join Haas F1 for their postseason test, and he'll be joined not by Ollie Behrman. He's going to be joined by a Toyota driver. His name is Ryo Hirakawa. You're sitting here thinking to yourself, why Ryo as opposed to Ollie Behrman? There is actually a reason for it.
Reserve.
Yeah. There's two reasons for it. Ryo's probably going to end up being a reserve driver for Haas F1. He is a driver who's had plenty of activity with Toyota in sports car racing, World Endurance Challenge Series, most notably. So he knows European courses, for example. And his relationship to Toyota is actually important because earlier on this year, you might remember that Haas F1 cut a deal, and they're actually sponsored in part by Toyota, even though they're running Ferrari engines. I know, can't keep the players straight without a scorecard. But either way, this allows Haas F1 to use wind tunnels and other infrastructure that Toyota has in Europe for racing purposes. So Ryo's going to come over there, and that all takes part of it. So what about Ollie Behrman? Turns out Ollie Behrman actually is not eligible for the green racer rule that, Matt, you referred to earlier because he's got 3 Formula One starts this year.
Makes sense.
Oops.
Makes sense.
Strange how 3 of them are, though.
Yeah.
I mean, it used to be, I remember this in NASCAR. You probably do too. To be eligible for Rookie of the Year, you couldn't have had more than 7 Cup Series starts in any one.
It used to be 5.
There you go. 5, 7, okay, I can kind of understand it. 3? Seems quite restrictive, doesn't it?
It is F1 we're talking about here.
Still, seems quite restrictive to me.
Yeah.
So I don't know how all the postseason testing is going to go, but it looks like right now it's going to be Esteban Ocon, Ryo Hirakawa for Haas F1. And everybody else, we'll just have to wait and find out. FIA. I'm still totally just befuddled as to how this whole thing has gone on. The saga of Andretti Cadillac. And we went through it, but we're going to go through it real quick in review again. It was Andretti Cadillac, you might remember. And then all of a sudden, everybody started having a fit. Because apparently Michael Andretti ruffled some feathers the wrong way in and around the hallways of Formula One and the FIA. I say the FIA because, well, they could have overruled it. The FIA is the governing body over Formula One. So they open up the application process. Michael Andretti puts in the application. He's the only one out of a half a dozen of or so that were approved. And then everyone said, well, we're not sure what value you bring, so what else can you bring? So he goes and he gets one of the biggest automakers on the planet, General Motors, who decides they're going to attach the Cadillac name to it. So now it's Andretti Cadillac. But despite that, you still got a whole bunch of people within the Formula One hallways that are going, we still don't see the value to it. Really? You don't? So then all of a sudden, Michael Andretti decides, you know what, I'm going to step down from the day-to-day operations of Andretti Global. And other people come in and they take over, and
poof, here's your team.
Now all of a sudden, the FIA, Formula One, all the other team owners, all the other 10 team owners seem to be in unison, and all 20 of the drivers currently in Formula One seem to be like, hey, Cadillac, welcome on in with open arms. Really?
Yeah. Let me see here. A quote that I saw.
Oh, yeah, I can't wait for this.
Where are you? I know where it come from. I just got to get to it.
You just got to find the right quote.
Oh, here we go. Adam Stern shares on his social media through an AP article from Ben Sulayem, Uncle Ben Sulayem.
Yes.
Quote,
FIA commissioner, by the way.
I feel Michael Andretti should be proud because he's the founder that started this thing with his partners. Michael is a lovely person, and I do not feel that this was a personal against Michael Andretti. Then what was it?
Really?
What was it?
You don't think it was personal against Michael Andretti?
Then what was it? He's there. I don't know. I'm not so sure about that. I'm stepping away from day-to-day operations, but I'm stepping into more of an advisor role. Oh, come on.
Yeah.
Makes no sense.
If I'm
No
Michael
sense.
Andretti, I'm kind of taking that personally. Just saying. So anyway, after all those wranglings, negotiations, musical chairs, and pulling of hair, we finally know now that the GM Cadillac entry will join officially for the 2026 season. We'll find out drivers and all the other stuff a little bit later on. Now, all of a sudden, the aforementioned Mr. Ben Sulayem is apparently not just happy with 11 teams and wants another one? Huh?
You caught us. We're developing the 12th F1 team.
Yeah,
Sorry.
right.
Yeah, in my dreams.
I mean, first of all the 10 existing current teams that are on the grid right now complain to high heaven about having to split the pie financially with an 11th team. Are they going to complain about a 12th? And who are they going to get? Because obviously a big name within the racing world like Andretti's not good enough. They forced them to go and get somebody else that had some backing to them, most notably a car maker, General Motors. Who you going to get? Who's out there that hasn't already been in there once and doesn't really want to get back into it? I mean, Porsche's basically punted. Audi's already involved. BMW has come and gone a couple of different times. VW? When was the last time you thought about VW and racing in Formula One? How about never? Mercedes is already there. Jaguar's racing in Formula E. There's Volvo, but Volvo is owned by a Chinese company, and, well, we don't really think about them racing in a Formula One either. So who else is left? Rolls-Royce? Bentley? What other name under the Stellantis name can you bring in? Maserati's already racing in Formula E, so you're probably not going to get them. You already got Formula One with Ferrari. I don't see that happening. Ford's already attached their name to Red Bull, slapping their name on an engine that's actually built by Honda. Toyota's attached to Haas F1, so they're probably not going to start their own team.
I still think that's clearing the path for Toyota to get back as a works team engine, supplying engines to F1, to Haas.
And it's very
that's
possible.
a clear path, I think, is coming that way.
It's very possible. I mean, we're starting to lock down and shove out a whole lot of car makers. Who's coming in? That will, as the other Formula One owners have said, bring significant value to Formula One.
Let's just get it developed and make the hypothetical here. Let's see here. The Monster Energy Dodge Hellcat F1 team. Let's do that.
I like it.
Throw something out there.
Sure, let's do it.
I could see a F1 car flying around COTA or Monza or Monaco with a Hellcat logo on the side of it. Here
Like
comes
it.
the Hellcat.
We ought to do it.
I mean,
Can you get Stellantis to do that? I mean, that's the one brand of the Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, other than Jeep, that seems to be fairly healthy. Chrysler may go away.
there's a big one you're missing. A big one.
Okay, go for it.
Nissan.
Nissan's in a lot of different racing. I'll give it that.
Nissan.
I'll give it that. They're in a lot of different racing. Plus, we keep hearing that whole NASCAR thing about that fourth operation. Who is it? He and I are fairly convinced it's down to the final between the two of Nissan and Honda. If one of them decides to go racing within NASCAR and it's Nissan, are they spreading themselves too thin by trying not only to kick up a NASCAR team, but a Formula One team as well?
Maybe, but if considering you've got General Motors doing Cadillac, Cadillac is the luxury brand of General Motors.
That's true.
Could Toyota throw the Lexus brand out because they're doing it in IMSA?
Possible.
Just a thought.
It's possible. Time will tell. I mean, Nissan's big. The infrastructure of Nissan is big. Not quite as big as Toyota, but it is bigger than Honda, bigger than Mazda, bigger than really every other Japanese-owned car company other than Toyota. Maybe they've got enough and they won't be spreading themselves too thin. I guess it's possible. But, yeah, whoever's coming in as this prospective 12th owner, number one, I wouldn't come in until 2028 and you walk in there with your engine package already made up and ready to go. Mm-hmm. That's first. And number two, I do wonder who it is that you're going to get as a backer. Because if they just allow, for example, the crossed flags entry to come in without Nissan's backing, for example, isn't that a little bit hypocritical? Because we're a lot less proven than, say, Andretti Global. See my point?
Couldn't you hear David Croft saying now on Sky Sports, here comes the cross flag CRN Dodge Hellcat Charger entry.
I actually kind of want to do that now.
Well,
we know anybody that's got some significant money that could back that?
Let me see if I can get Elon on dial.
All right. Well, he works on that.
Yeah.
One more note out of Formula One here, and you and I, we have loved this track ever since it first came up. You've actually run it on iRacing. Mm-hmm. And I love just watching the race itself. The Dutch Grand Prix. Zandvoort, they did a great job with this track. Made it a whole heck of a lot of fun. The thing is more like a roller coaster than it is a racetrack in some ways, and that just makes it a lot of fun to watch. Live on television, or truth be told, any number of camera angles from any of the cars. It's just a great track, very curvy, quite hilly, and they did the great job of banking more than one of the turns at, well, NASCAR angles, to be real blunt. Mm-hmm. That track's going away. It's going away? You just brought it back for 2021. They did a 1-year extension to get it through the 2026 season, and at 2027, it's off the schedule again. Why? Stands were packed out. Racing was good. I'm not sure I understand the process.
It tells me there's another track about to come in somewhere or come back. Tells me.
I get the funny feeling I know where they're going to end up going.
South Africa.
Yep. They're going to the continent of Africa. There's been a lot of push towards getting that continent back onto the F1 calendar. It's been, what, since the 90s? Mm-hmm. That's since the 1990s, since they've been on it. So I kind of understand it. But when I look at it, you got 2 races in Italy, you got 3 races here in the United States of America. Couldn't you have pulled one? Created that opening instead of taking it away from that track, which is really cool, picturesque, a lot of fun.
Yep.
Not a big fan of this move. Not at all.
Or we could just take the rest of the money like you did at Las Vegas and throw it right down the road from here off exit 140, because like I've always said on the main big show,
wouldn't be all that hard.
I know there's a set of blueprints for a fact that could turn Barber in from a grade 2 to a grade 1 in the snap of a finger.
And on that big show in the past, you and I kind of went through some of the details that split a grade 2 to a grade 1. It's not a big radical change.
No.
The things that Barber would have to do at Barber Motorsports Park are actually kind of minuscule. It's a real easy conversion, if you want to put it that way.
Basically, it boils down to a repave with a thicker grade of asphalt for horsepower holding reasons. Their words, not mine.
Sure. It's not like Indycar doesn't have a really good amount of horsepower.
Yeah, and Uncle George, all he's got to do is just stretch it right back around the backside of the proving grounds and come back and tie in, and we've got a F1 course, boys and girls.
Wouldn't that be fun?
That'd be great.
All right, let's switch over here, come to the United States, talk a little bit of NASCAR here. The latest in the legal wranglings in the court case between NASCAR on one side, 2311 Racing and Front Row Motorsports on the other side. And I'll be honest with you, I'm a little surprised that it took this long for NASCAR to come up with this one. They have asked the court to toss the suit.
Isn't it typically the person that, if they want the suit to be thrown out, the person that brought the suit to the table? Doesn't that typically happen? Typically? Yeah. Hey, throw this out.
In this case, I kind of understand it. I mean, NASCAR feels like the suit, as they said, is a, quote, misguided attempt to dress up private business frustrations in antitrust garb.
I don't think Michael Jordan has business frustrations.
No. And truth be told, I don't think Bob Jenkins has a whole lot of them either. Despite the rather humble beginnings of Front Row Motorsports, you don't go out there and cut a deal to spend, $20 to $25 million on a charter from Stewart-Haas Racing if you're having business problems. It doesn't really work that way.
Right. That Love's travel stop money does go a long ways.
Mm-hmm. And I get it. It's not quite as much as, say, Michael Jordan has access to privately or through his sponsors. But either way, Bob Jenkins isn't doing all that bad. And like we said, It's Michael Jordan. Mm-hmm. Michael Jordan's a billionaire based upon a Nike contract. Forget all the other sponsors he's got. Based upon a Nike contract, Michael Jordan's a billionaire. Is it news? Yes. Because it is an interesting thing to ask. Because so far, all the motions that we have seen and or heard that have come out of that North Carolina courtroom have gone in favor of NASCAR. I get the funny feeling this might be the first ruling that goes against NASCAR.
Probably. Because I don't think that they would have somebody like the caliber of Jeffrey Kessler with them if they didn't think it could really go somewhere.
Yeah. If Jeffrey Kessler didn't feel like they had a case,
he wouldn't have taken it.
No. And then at that point in time, we wouldn't be talking about this particular suit.
Correct.
Also, want to clarify some things because while we're still waiting for all of the information from Front Row Motorsports when it comes to their 3 cars, I mean, we know one thing. We know Todd Gilliland's in the 34, sponsored by Love's. The other thing that we know is that Noah Gragson is going to be a driver for Front Row Motorsports. But we don't know whether they're going to take the number 38 and put Noah in it, or whether they're going to pull out that number 36 that they've used in the past and put Noah in that, and put another driver, to be named, in the 38, and we don't know all the sponsors. We can guess on the Noah Gragson car because a lot of those sponsors have been sponsors of him for many, many years, and they followed him from his time in the Xfinity Series up into the Cup Series and so on. So we can presume the Bass Pro Shops, Tracker,
Black Rifle Coffee
Company, and so on. We can presume those. Mm-hmm. But again, we don't know which car number he's going to be in, and number 2, we don't know who that third teammate is. What we do know is over at Front Row Motorsports that you have the returning guys of Tyler Reddick, who did his level best to go for a championship, Bubba Wallace, who needs to learn more from Tyler Reddick than he is from whoever it is that he's learning stuff from. And then you've got another ex-Stewart-Haas Racing driver in, Riley Earpst, who's coming up and taking over the number 35 with Monster Energy as a sponsor. I've had a few people wondering whether or not they were actually going to follow through on that. Yeah, they're going to follow through on it. Despite the fact that they don't have charters, and NASCAR has said that door is shut for both 2311 and Front Row Motorsports. But yes, they can compete as open teams. Just means they got to qualify on speed. Which, judging from the fact that 2311 gets their stuff from Joe Gibbs Racing, not a bad deal. And Front Row Motorsports has been a top-tier Ford affiliate for a while. But if I'm going to say that one of the two teams has a lesser chance, I would say it would be Front Row. Except for the Daytona 500, because they're really, really good at the Daytonas and the Talladegas. But either way, I'm fairly convinced that pretty much all 6 from Front Row and 2311, they're going to end up being able to qualify on speed.
Very easily. Very easily.
But there are people that are out there that are insisting because they don't have charters and because NASCAR said there's no opening for them to get charters right now, will these cars appear on the track? Yes, they will. They have the sponsorship to do it. They have the drivers to do it. They have the infrastructure to do it. It's why 2311 built the airspeed location that they did off of I-77.
77.
It's why Front Row Motorsports is going out there saying, hey, we're going to buy the other Stewart-Haas Racing charter, and I think that they were going to move into one of the buildings, weren't they?
They're staying where they're at.
Okay. Either way, they're committed. They're in this business because they love racing and they want to race. And they're going out and they're finding the proper sponsors and the drivers to get those sponsors. So, yeah, they're going to go out there. They're going to try. Don't worry about it. All 6 of those cars, they'll be there. Let's make sure that we get that perfectly clear.
Yep.
One final note as we turn our attention to the National Hot Rod Association. We haven't talked about them a whole lot, but this is pretty big news here. Just before the season ended, these two, who are married, that's Tony Stewart and Leah Pruitt, by the way, they had their child, a son, Dominic James. Congratulations once again to Tony and Leah, who are now first-time parents, both of them. Love it. When they got married, about this time last year, give or take, they said they wanted to start a family, and Leah pulled herself out of the Top Fuel ride in order to have a little bit less stress on the body.
A little bit?
Yeah.
A lot.
G-forces, folks. So who did they put in the car? They put Tony in the car. And Tony finished 9th in the final standings in Top Fuel in year number 1 and was listed as the 2024 NHRA Rookie of the Year for the Mission Foods Drag Racing Series. For those of you not familiar with that, that includes Nitro Top Fuel, Nitro Funny Car, Pro Stock Car, and Pro Stock Motorcycle. Those 4 divisions make up the Mission Foods Drag Racing Series, the top level of racing within the NHRA. I mean, 330 miles per hour in how many feet? 1,000? A little over? That ain't bad. But that's a lot of G-forces. Mm-hmm. So again, that's why Leah pulled herself out, put Tony Stewart in the car. Well, now they've had their child. Does Leah come back? Actually, no.
Yet.
Not yet. For 2025, Tony's back in the car. Made the announcement just last night on a podcast, Tuesday specifically on a podcast as we record on a Wednesday, and said she wants to concentrate on being a mom, making sure that Dominic gets a good start in life. So she's going to be a mom for the next year, and I'm going to go back and I'll be in that Top Fuel ride. I get the funny feeling he's not going to find himself pulling out of a ride anytime too soon because he may not have the sponsorship pull that a Michael Jordan does, but a Tony Stewart does raise some eyebrows in the sponsor world. And if he wants to throw out a second Top Fuel car and make Tony Stewart Racing a 3-car operation, Matt Hagan's down at Funny Car, by the way. You could easily see Tony and Leah pairing up and doing a 2-pronged Top Fuel assault on the NHRA, maybe beginning as early as 2026.
I have been told at Indianapolis in 2022, out of the mouth of Steve and Billy Torrance themselves,
Pretty well-known names within the Top Fuel world,
that it is a third of the cost to put a Top Fuel car on the track versus a Cup car alone.
Yeah.
And it's Steve Torrance's and Billy Torrance's paddock area. Outside of Steve Torrance's trailer alone, there were 5 engines. 5.
That's a really expensive venture if you're in NASCAR. Why do you think Tony Stewart pulled his name off of the Stewart-Haas name? He's done. He's fully invested in this. That's Tony Stewart Racing. That's what the TSR on the jacket stands for. Tony Stewart Racing. Lock, stock, and barrel. All his. Doesn't have to answer to anybody else. Doesn't have to partner up with anybody else. Now, sure, he's got advisors, but he's the man. Buck stops there. That's what the plaque says. You remember that one that used to sit on the White House desk that somehow got lost and no president's willing to own up to that anymore? The buck stops with Tony Stewart. It is Tony Stewart's race team. He can do what he wants. He's got great backing from Dodge Mopar. He's got great sponsors that have stuck with him, even though they were Leah Pruitt sponsors. They all seem to like Matt Hagan, who won the 2023 Funny Car Championship, and he was battling for the 2024, fell just short. I don't think it'd be that hard to find a couple of sponsors, say from his NASCAR days, that might put themselves on another funny car and put Tony Stewart out there for two top fuelers and a funny car for a 3-car operation. Not going to be shocked by that at all.
Wouldn't be hard.
Nope. Wouldn't be shocked by that at all. Do we know it's going to happen? No. Do we have a really good inkling that it will? Oh, yeah, we do. I'd be shocked if it didn't, actually. I mean, Tony's what, 52, 53?
53.
John Force, until he got in that big conflagration earlier on this year at Richmond, 75 and competitively racing. Tony's got plenty of time. Plenty of time. And Leah, heck, she hadn't even made 40 yet. She's got a long way to go. Mm-hmm. Congratulations, you two. Happy that you made the dream come true, being parents. Go get the racing world taken care of. Mm-hmm. Coming up this weekend, 2-hour big show. Going to be a little different. Most of the news is going to be concentrated in hour number 1. Hour number 2, we're going to talk to a gentleman who's down at Five Flag Speedway because this weekend, Snowball Derby. Mm-hmm. Very, very big race. Already getting some big name NASCAR people down there. So that's going to be a big, humongous event. What, 200? How many cars usually show up for this thing to try and qualify for it?
Total count usually in the 250 to 300 range out of all the divisions.
All trying to get into that particular race. Very, very cool stuff. If you've never been there, it's certainly worth going down to Pensacola to Five Flag Speedway because it's a neat facility too. Very, very high-class joint. So we'll be talking to a person about that, and then we're going to be talking with a group about a group called Addie's Racers, and it's a local group that is really, really cool stuff. They go out and they get high-speed cars and a lot of race cars of varying different levels, and they're able to go and take some special needs kids that are willing to get into the cars. They don't push them, but if they're willing to get into the car, they'll take them around the track at Barber, and we'll talk more about that coming up on Saturday in hour number 2. Hope you join us then. That'll be on CRN Live on YouTube, 9 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Central. And until next week, next Wednesday specifically, we'll talk to you then. CRN and Cross Flags, you had one thing?
We'll be, for a little bit of time, just me speaking up for myself. For a little bit of time, it will be to be determined. I'm on a week-to-week basis.
Yes.
I have to go under the knife tomorrow, and I'm going to be down for a little while.
Yeah. So he may not be there in person. Maybe he joins me by phone. A lot of it depends on exactly how good he's feeling.
Yeah.
Bit by bit.
Yep.
Thank you for joining us. Hope you join us again this Saturday and next Wednesday. We'll talk to you then.
You've been listening to Crossed Flags, a racing podcast. For more content like this, subscribe to CRN Live on YouTube, and you'll be set to catch the 2-hour live show every Saturday morning at 9 Eastern, 8 Central.
This has been a presentation of the Championship Racing Network.